Hey everybody, welcome back to Friday Q&A. This is the first Q&A for 2019. I hope you all had a really great festive season. I certainly did. Ate way too much food, played a whole bunch of Mario Kart, and even got some time to make some guitar videos in there. So, been having a lot of fun. If you have questions for next week, please let me know in the comment section. Literally ask me anything. I'm more than happy to get back to you guys with a response. Let's get straight into this week's video. In my last Q&A, somebody asked me how old I was, so I decided rather than to answer that directly, I would ask you guys to guess. And well, there were some interesting responses, and I showed my wife, and she found it incredibly funny. I think the lowest age anybody had on there was 28, and the highest was like 47 or something like that. So, man, 47, all these years of touring, eating crap food, not getting any sleep, and playing guitar in a dank, dark dungeon are obviously catching up with me. But a bunch of you guys said, I think 36 was a really common one, or early to mid-30s, and I'm actually 30. I'll be turning 31 in May, so I was born in 1988. That's the correct answer for anybody out there who was wondering for that bit of trivia. So I'm either looking great for my age at 47, or I'm looking terrible at the age of 30. Have I done a video with the Axe-Fx 3 making presets and assigning them to a foot controller? I haven't. There's like a big gap in a lot of the content that I've been making for the 3. Fractal have announced that the FC6 and FC12 they're out and they're shipping pre-orders, which is pretty awesome. And the appealing thing about that is you just connect one XLR to your Axe-Fx 3 and everything works. But in terms of general MIDI programming, I will try to get my hands on, I don't have like a super cool, modern MIDI controller like the RJM stuff or anything like that, but I do have access to a BJ Device's TB12, so I might play around with that in the next couple of weeks and hopefully put out some just general MIDI tips for your Axe-Fx 3 if you're somebody who's not going to get an FC6 or an FC12. Did I get any guitar gear for Christmas? Nothing really specific. I did get some camera gear, which is pretty sweet. I got this new Joby, the Gorilla stand that I'm using at the moment, so that's super awesome. And I got some GoPro stuff to take diving, which is pretty exciting. But I have been taking the time over the break to check out a bunch of stuff that people have been asking me about. Specifically, I did the video with the Atomic Amplifier 6, which is a great little piece of gear that I've been wanting to try out for quite a while, and a bunch of plugins. So there's a couple more videos coming out on like the STL tonality. I did a little video with that guy, and obviously the Fortin NTS, which came out this week. So yeah, I mean, given the amount of gear that I have here, kind of every day is Christmas for me. I can just pick out a different guitar or dial up something on the Axe-Fx or the Atomic or a plug-in and go. So yeah, I'm certainly in one of those very, very fortunate positions where I'm not wanting for gear. What pedals are in the rack with the Fractal? Well, at the moment, I'm just going to pull a few out. I'll pull the rack out. At the moment, I've got this guy sitting in there, which is the Atomic Amplifier 6. Just did a video with this one. Better put that back in the rack. I've got my Eventide H9 in there, which is pretty cool. It's got the Home Musician little 3D printed buttons on there that I've got on my AX8 as well. Actually, on that topic, and talking about like Christmas gifts, I got this as well. This arrived. This is the Axcam mount. 3D printed. If you go to the Home Musician's website, you can... I don't think he's got these for sale just yet. This is kind of like a beta model, but you can put 2 GoPro session cameras on there mounted on your guitar neck, and it's kind of like, Troy Grady has like the magnet. You can mount a smartphone in there, the GoPros, so I'm really, really excited to start making some videos with this one. I just haven't got around to it as of yet. I've been doing a bunch of other things, and hopefully soon you'll see the Axcam mount on a bunch of videos. But yeah, anyway. Home Musician does really great stuff. I love it. 3D printed. He made the buttons for that and for my AX8. What else have I got in here? At the moment, I've got this. The Red Panda Context is sitting in there. And the Boss Dimension C. The DC2W, which is super cool. Come on, focus. Show the people. Yeah. Yeah. Total vanity purchase. And I've got this, which I'm yet to do a video about. But I will just show you guys because you all know how much I love Dragon Ball Z. It's like a Shenron stereo chorus, and there's a cool story behind this one, so there'll be a little video with this guy coming out soon. It sounds really, really good. Yeah, and I've got a power supply mounted in there. So this is one of those things where I initially thought, oh, I'll put a pedal rack in there and then I'll hook it up with a switcher and integrate it with the Axe-Fx. But it's more just a convenience thing. I just kind of have two cables sticking out in one of the Axe-Fx loops, and I just sort of patch stuff in and out as I feel like it. So that's super handy. I better put these things back now. ADA MP1 3-tube mod for 2019. Yeah, that's definitely a goal. I've been reading about the 3-tube mod like forever. I remember hanging around on ADA Depot back in the day and seeing people come out with this 3-tube mod, which seems pretty cool. I'm definitely not going to do it to my ADA. I would probably need to go and buy an ADA that's either already got it installed or buy the kit and try to pick up a cheap secondhand MP1, which would be cool, because my MP1 is an original that my dad actually bought in the 80s, and it's kind of cool, you know. There's this like sentimental value attached to it, and also it's just a cool reference thing. You know, I know a lot of MP1s out there have been modded, so it's nice to just have one sort of as is. But yeah, 3-tube mod, let's make this happen in 2019. So talking about the Rockman video that I did right at the end of last year, a few of you had a couple of questions asking about like how to replicate that sound with pedals. Essentially, the two clean modes, one of them basically is like an edge breakup sound, and the other is pretty much just a DI sound. So if you want to get that super clean Rockman thing, probably all you would need is a graphic or a parametric EQ just to basically roll out some low end from your DI guitar signal, a stereo chorus pedal, and you know, some kind of analog delay, because it's not like a super bright digital sounding delay. And that's one of the really cool things about the Rockman, is that, you know, it does sound, the effects sound warm and analog, for use of a better term. They're not sort of super bright or anything like that. So that is how I would go about replicating that, and I will put out an Axe-Fx tone match preset in the next week or so with the Rockman once I can kind of spend some time and dial it in, because it is a super cool tone. It is the sound of the 80s. A question that I got on my demo of the Myasnikov Super Lead preset, just about the ordering process, I found it pretty straightforward. I actually got in touch with him through Facebook and sent him a couple of messages there. Then I got his email address and we just kind of went from there. I was away on tour when it arrived. From memory, I think that was 2016 when I got it, and I was in Europe for a couple of weeks. So it took maybe about 2 months, but considering that it's coming from Russia all the way to Australia, and that Australian customs can be funny about stuff, especially they love to hold on to things and just sort of hold the pain out. Like I got a thing and it was like, oh, your package has arrived, and I was like, oh, fantastic, I'll hopefully get it before I go on tour. And yeah, they just held on to it for a couple of extra weeks. But yeah, paid over PayPal. He seems like a pretty good dude, pretty trustworthy and things like that, and he's very active on social media. So as safe as you can be, I guess, when it comes to ordering from a small scale builder. So a challenge to replicate the Boston Tom Scholz sound from the first couple of albums on the Axe-Fx 3. Am I up for it? I've heard a couple of really good sort of reenactments of this tone, either using the Axe-Fx or using other things. And it's just one of those things where, you know, people often ask me like, oh, can you do a video on like the EVH tone, or can you do a video on like a Hendrix thing? And, you know, I'm always hesitant to do that, because there's things that I hear in those sounds that I really don't want to replicate for myself. Like, you know, when I listen to Boston, that first Boston album, even the second album, you know, they're iconic guitar sounds, but that's not the way I play guitar. That's not really the way I like guitar to sound either. Not saying that I think it's bad, because I think it works perfectly in the context of those records. Like Tom Scholz crafted guitar sounds which perfectly reinforced the songs he was writing and the production style he was using. And yeah, that's just kind of like a rabbit hole I'm not super prepared to go down. Mostly because it's just not 100% sort of my style. I don't think I'm the guy to try and replicate those things. I'm happy to do some tone matches with the Rockman, but you know, when it comes to something like, say, a John Sykes style tone, you know, I've played in a Whitesnake tribute band, and I've listened to 1987 a lot and spent a lot of time trying to play like that. So I feel not qualified, but I feel comfortable chasing those kind of sounds, or the George Lynch thing. You know, they're like players who really had a profound impact on me as a player. Same thing as like Ty Tabor from King's X. That for me is way closer to the way I actually play guitar and closer to sort of my bread and butter. So yeah, it would be an awesome challenge, but honestly, I don't think I'm the guy to try to replicate the Boston sound. I would suggest use that as like an inspiration for crafting your own sound. But I always say that, and I sound like a bit of a broken record, but do it. Take that as a template and try to do your own thing. Have I tried a Fender Bassbreaker? No, I haven't. I think I've seen them in a couple of stores around here, and I really, really like the concept. I think it's funny that, you know, Marshall copied the Fender Bassman, created this iconic guitar amp, and like 60 years later, Fender took that approach and kind of reworked it into like a Marshall-y thing. So it's definitely an amp that has been on my radar. Shane at In the Blues did a really great demo of it from memory. Maybe I'm imagining that, but yeah, they're a great sounding amp. I'm sure I'd really get on with it well, and you know, that's not bias. If you've got an amp that you love, tell me about it in the comments, and hopefully I can get my hands on a bunch of stuff you guys are passionate about and pull some good sounds out of it. My camera battery just died, so I apologize for like the inconsistency in camera angle happening here. But question that was posed, for a Jerry Cantrell Alice in Chains kind of sound, would I rather go with the Orange Dark Terror, a PRS MT15, or the Orange Brent Hines? Unfortunately, I've only got hands-on experience with one of those amps, but I do have a video using the Dark Terror and an Anarchy Audio boost pedal to try and get like a Jerry kind of sound, and I think it works really well. A big factor in that tone is going to be your speaker cab choice and your speaker choice. From memory, on maybe Dirt, he actually used like a 1x12 cab that was mic'd at the front and the back, which is kind of cool. So that's a big part of his sound, and obviously just the way that he plays. You know, he's got this incredible guitar sound that has so much to do with the way he actually writes riffs and plays, and they're one of the few bands that I've seen live where they actually play their songs slower than on the record. You know, most bands full of energy and they kind of play stuff a bit quicker, but yeah, listening to Alice in Chains live, his guitar sounds immense, and a large part of that is, I think, because they slow the songs down and just really grind stuff out. So hopefully this year I'll get my hands on an MT15 to demo, because I really, really like the stuff that I've heard. Obviously really like Alter Bridge and Mark's stuff, and PRS always make really good stuff. Same thing with the Archon. I would love to get my hands on an Archon and demo one, because people just sort of go crazy for that amp, and for good reason, because all the clips I've heard, it sounds great. This is a good question. A few people have asked this recently. Obviously, you can't just like go to your local music store and try out an X-Effects thing like you can with, you know, Line 6. I guess Line 6 are owned by Yamaha, and Yamaha have this giant distribution network all around Australia, or Boss or other companies like this. Fractal basically sell direct in America. They sell through Independent Music in Australia, which is based on the East Coast. I'm on the West Coast for reference, and I think it's G66 in Europe. And they got a bunch of dealers sort of around the place, so it is a little bit harder to actually get your hands on them and try them. What I would recommend is maybe just try to find somebody near you who owns one and try to sit down with your guitar in sort of an environment that you're comfortable with and try it out. Otherwise, I know in America they have a 14 or 15 day return policy, so you can buy it, you can try it out with your stuff, and you can send it back, and I'm sure there are similar policies in Europe and Australia. So they're the two ways to basically try one out. I definitely think it's worth trying it with your own guitar and dialing in your own presets. You know, the factory presets are really good, but as I say in a lot of my videos, start with just an amp and a cab and a good monitor and your guitar, and try to chase some guitar sounds like that, because it's well worth going down that rabbit hole. One of my most talked about videos from 2018, and this is based on YouTube's analytics, which basically, you know, says, hey, here's the number of watch minutes and all the likes and the comments and stuff like that, was a video I did cranking a Marshall JCM 800 all the way up, and there's so many funny responses on there to me. It just sort of like, you know, really brings out the staunchness in guitar players, you know, like everybody's sitting there like, oh, nah, you think it's too loud? Nah, fucking, I used to play like 72 stacks back in 1977 with my fucking ear right on the cone. Hey, you're a soft cunt. And, yeah, I am. I like being able to hear stuff. I like being able to hear above like 2K so that I can actually enjoy playing guitar. But one of the more reasonable questions was, would I consider that amp louder than a Plexi? I haven't tried an original Plexi, but I did try it side by side with a reissue, and they're both really loud amps through the right cab as well. Like, just too loud. Especially these days, there is nowhere where you're going to get to turn one of those amps up other than like a really big room in a studio. And even then, as you heard in the clip, it doesn't sound good there. I think the sweet spot on those kind of Marshalls is like 6 or 7. So the point of that video wasn't like, yeah, I'm so tough, look at me play a Marshall on 10. And someone wrote like an essay on there about like, oh, well, let's look at the inspiration behind Leon's video and we'll cross-reference what happens in this Pete Thorne video and what happens there. And it's like, don't take it that seriously, man. It's just a bit of fun. And I just wanted to sort of demonstrate that, you know, yeah, a Marshall on 10, it's a bit of a myth. You don't need to do it. If you want that kind of like speaker breakup kind of sound, you can get it from modelers and you can get it from like tiny little amps as well. So yeah, that was really interesting. You know, I feel like so many of the people here on the channel are really, really reasonable. And a lot of you guys who tune in all the time, you know, you leave great comments and you're respectful and things like that. And it's always interesting on my end doing those kind of videos that sort of brings out a bit of the rabble. So if you consider yourself part of the rabble, leave a comment here and fight me on the internet, because that's what the internet is all about. Alright, here's the first lick of the week for 2019. This is a directly inspired by Stevie Ray lick. Let's play in the key of A, and this is one of those cliches that you hear like everyone who does anything vaguely bluesy do. The idea would be you take the sort of classic Chuck Berry, Angus Young slash thing where you would bend the 7th fret by a tone, and then play the 5th on the B and the 5th on the E. That's 7th on the G, by the way. So, and then it's 8/5 on the B. So, you know, that lick, which, you know, probably goes back to like the 40s or earlier than that. You know, Albert King, Buddy Guy, Freddie King, all those kind of great guys from that era. This thing. Then what we're going to do is we're going to sort of play outside of A minor pentatonic, and we're going to grab the 7th fret on the E string, which is the 2nd degree of the minor scale, or the 9th degree, same thing. So you get... And then this is like the ultimate Stevie thing to do, is hammer on from the 5th fret to the 6th fret and pull off. So... And then it's 8/5 on the B. Another way to think about that lick as well, like if you were playing in A, you could play it there, or you could also play it from the 12th fret, so over the 4 chord, you know. And then move back down to this. So you can either think of it as being, like if you're playing over D9, the 4 chord, or D7, sort of whatever you want to do. You could think of it as playing the A blues scale up here, where there's A, there's the 5th, there's the flat 5th, there's the 4th. But you sort of hear this more, you hear Stevie do it more in that kind of context where he's playing in A and he plays it in that A minor pentatonic position. So what would that be? That would be like superimposing E blues over A, which is... So it's a pretty cool trick from like a kind of theory perspective. You can think of it in a couple of ways. Like I said, either or you can play it over 4. So yeah, it's pretty cool. You can also do that other classic Stevie thing where he bends, and this to me is really an Albert King thing that he's stolen. Bending the 10th fret, if you're in the key of A, up to the 12th, and then bending the 9th by a semitone, so it sounds like the 10th. So you're going the 4th degree of the scale to the 5th, then the major 3rd to the 4th, and then you hit the flat 3rd, which is the 8th on the E string. So you could go... So yeah, there you go. There's a sort of little Stevie Ray inspired thing on a Fender Malmsteen Strat. So if I can get my hands on a Stevie Ray Strat at some point, I will teach you guys some Malmsteen licks. Until then, have a great week. I'll see you next week for Friday Q&A. Peace out.